Welcome to the Washdown podcast. And tonight's guests, we have a returning guest, Rich Curasi, also Jon Sabala. And Jon is the director of Veteran Services for the Missouri Department of Mental Health. He is responsible for statewide policy and program development, implementation, and operation of supportive service for service members, veterans, and their families. He's also the co-lead for the Governor's Challenge to prevent suicide among veterans, and is a certified peer specialist and retired U.S. Army infantryman with 22 years of service, including deployments to Operation Desert Storm, Kosovo, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. We had a great conversation, learned a ton of stuff, learned about resources and programs that he is involved with. So hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Hope you get something out of it. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to put some links in the description. So check those out. So here you go, the Washdown podcast with guests Jon Sabala and Rich Curasi.
He's kind of used to that, but
I've been known to let it go once in a while, sure.
But down in Jefferson City, let me tell you.
Well, we just we'll keep it PG-13.
Yeah,
for as much as we can talking about
those people.
These topics.
Those people will get pissed off about anything, whether there's anything to get pissed off about or not.
Well, I think it's about optics. So, and we deal with the same thing with our fire department. We have to be very cognizant of, we have free speech, First Amendment, and all that stuff. But at the same time, we also have a media policy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we take pretty good pains to, one, not say what department we work for, and two, not to say anything directly about our department.
Yeah.
We speak as the fire service in general, things that, we see problems and stuff, and just try to raise awareness that way instead of going, well, our department has this problem. Well,
yeah,
that's whenever you start to get in trouble. So,
without a doubt. And you're also looking at, from the other side of this too, is thinking about how can we reach a larger audience? What are some things that will shut people down when watching something?
Exactly.
And so part of the language piece is some of that, or if you only focus on one thing, one unit, one agency, it can tune people out too. So
absolutely. And it's like you said, it's a presentation of your message.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen, things of people protesting or this or that, and okay, I agree with like the sentiment or the message or whatever. Just the way you're delivering that message is 100% wrong.
Yeah.
And and it doesn't matter what you say after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it may be passion filled without a doubt.
Yeah.
And maybe different upbringings, you don't have enough ways to communicate what you want to communicate. But I get it. I like to see passion too. So
yeah. Well, Jon, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Rich, thanks for coming back.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, Jon, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do and why you are here.
Yeah, great. So first of all, thanks again for using this platform to talk about suicide prevention. I love what you do here. This is great, and I'm glad that you were letting us come up here to talk about this today. Jon Sabala, Veteran Services Director at the Missouri Department of Mental Health. Kind of a one-person show over there. Is anything military connected in the building? Hopefully I have a piece of that. I really focus a lot of time on identifying gaps and barriers across the state to meet our behavioral health needs and suicide prevention needs for the military community, and then develop programs, policies, what I can do to help bridge those things so that everyone has services. That's really important.
Yeah, that's hugely important, and I'm a little bit surprised to hear you're a one-man department.
It's, it's a lot, but I'm an old infantry first sergeant. And
oh, well, then you just get it done then.
I grab things and say, let's go, and start running. So
do you work closely with the VA then, or is it?
Great question. And often when I say I'm Veteran Services Director, people say, oh, the VA this. And I'm like, stop the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am work for the Missouri Department of Health, but I do have partnerships and do some programs at times with the VA system.
Okay.
And in the work that I do, I don't necessarily just promote coming to departmental health contract providers for services and programs. I want people to have choices.
Right.
We were just talking about that a second ago, choices. So some people love the VA system. I've used the VA system. That's great. They got a lot of good stuff going on there. But some people want choices. There are times in my life where the treatment I did was not in VA connected, and I didn't want to be near the flagpole. So that's another piece of it too, having choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the thing that it's kind of opened my eyes of doing this podcast and talking to the amount of people that we've talked to about, how different organizations have different treatment protocols and plans, and you can't get everything in one spot. There's no one-stop shop, so to speak, as far as mental health goes, and especially for veterans who, may be suffering from TBI from a blast injury or PTSD or, whatever it may be. And I mean, that varies even from VA to VA, from my knowledge of what this VA will approve and what this one won't. And, to have you as a state-run entity to be able to offer even more options.
Right.
I mean, I don't see that as a bad thing.
Without a doubt. It's needed. And, part of my, I did say I was an infantry first sergeant, and along my career, I did have some troubles with PTSD. I lost some troops in Iraq, kind of took it a little hard. Wasn't a good feeling, and so I ended up going to treatment, and I tried some with VA connection, but the most of what I did was outside the VA. I did not want to be with a counselor that was military connected. I just wanted to push away from it for a while, get some care, and ended up working out for me. But again, it's just the choices.
Yeah. Well, and it's different for everybody. Yeah. Some people, they want that military connection, or they want that, like we talk about cultural competency, of somebody who understands. Now, not necessarily that they've done the job or whatever, but that they understand it.
Without a doubt.
And they understand the lifestyle and all of the things that are attached to it. But then, like there are people who are like, I'm done with that portion. Yeah. I don't want anything to do with it. I need to heal in a different way.
Exactly.
So,
without a doubt, and I'm glad you said culturally competent, treatment, because some people truly want that. I will only talk to a veteran. I notice a lot of Vietnam veterans really prefer talking with fellow veterans, and that's great. Yeah. And having those options is great. But there are some people that do not have a good experience in military.
Yeah.
And they just want to disconnect from it. Or they may be a little bit embarrassed at times. Maybe things didn't work out like they wanted to, and you know what? I don't want to really tell people I'm a veteran. So maybe I'll just go somewhere else instead. It's choices and options, always needed.
Yeah.
Hey, John, you touched on something a few moments ago that brought up a memory. I forget how long ago it was, and I found it very interesting. You gave some testimony before the let me get my.
It was a House interim hearing on veterans' behavioral health and suicide.
And it seems like the members who were sitting there were surprised when you just say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm an army of one. Within the Missouri government, there are, I forget, John, 21 or 22 programs that you administer. I forget how many. 16
that I manage, 16. But I do stay connected with other programming as well. Sure.
And I, having worked with you for a number of years, knew that you were that deeply involved. I didn't know the number was that high. And the I guess it was the lead, the senior member, the ranking member, who was kind of orchestrating everything. When you said that, his head snapped back and said, "Can I have that again?" And you kind of said it. Yeah, I'll say that again. He says, "I want to talk to you when this is all over." Since then, however, I've noticed, and maybe you can address this, I think it's one of the topics that we're going to talk about, is that some of the programs have either grown or they've combined, like the governor's campaign.
Hey, Rich, stay in front of your mic.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, thank you, Jeremy.
Turn your eyes, not your head.
That's right.
Turn my eyes, not my head. But the governor's campaign and some of the other things that the team has done and some of the other things you've asked us to do, I think it'd be wise to kind of speak to those, to what that momentum is.
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know where we're going to go with this thing, but I don't want to bounce around too much, but we can.
It's fine.
Yeah. So, the work I do, even though it's a lot of programs, I like to think I'm pretty efficient. I got some good project management skills, so I can keep it going. And I don't do anything alone. Just like still being in the military, I never do things alone. I have a lot of project partners that I work with, other teams, other people across the state and federally. And so I'm not worried about having so many programs and projects, but there are times, yes, where I cannot spend as much energy as I need to make them more successful and more robust. So whenever I do have new projects, new initiatives, other things that pop up across the state, I make sure to tie in what's already existing. I don't have a budget. I have a little bit of E&E money to pay for, a rental car to take me somewhere, or per diem, which I don't think I really submit paperwork for because I'm going to eat wherever I go anyways. But I don't have money. I don't have a budget. And so I rely on other people's grants. When they're writing a grant, I'm saying, hey, how do you do this with the military too? And we partner together, and I use that type of grant funding. But what is out there already is a lot of existing programs. And I try and make sure we inject those into the work we do. Why create something new if it's already out there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are a ton of programs that are out there that people just don't know about.
Exactly.
And that goes all the way from nonprofits to state-funded things. And it can kind of blow your mind of, well, hey, we need these resources. Well, we have this whole smorgasbord of resources that no one's using.
Yeah.
It's like, do we need to do commercials for them, or like,
how do we let everybody know? And, I do this all the time. And when I talk to people about Jon, I've never heard about this. Well, we've been broadcasting it. We've been promoting it. It's been everywhere. And I'm sorry you don't know about it, but we've been doing this for years. And how do you reach everybody and their circles and their spheres of influence and their networks? It's hard to do, without a doubt. And maybe if I started, working on more funding, I could do more ways to broadcast it. So I connect everything that I can to different initiatives and projects and programs. And if they're not specifically for the military, then why not? You know, and let's work on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, one idea is social media. I don't know how involved you are with that, but it seems like you need something to start gaining traction with it.
Yeah.
Like almost like you have to go viral for people to start paying attention to you.
Like maybe do podcasts.
Yeah. Do a podcast.
Well, millions of people are watching.
Millions.
Hey,
millions.
Tens and tens of viewers.
Tens of.
Well, it's a great point about social media. It's a great platform to do, but not everyone does it. And I tell you, with half the veteran population being over 55, and that's just a rough guess. I haven't looked in a few years. They're not big fans of it. It's tough.
It's
tough.
Well, I think there's a general distrust for anything like that.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people for sure. And you might think that's odd since I have a podcast and I post on Instagram and we have a Facebook page and all that stuff. But like the whole social media thing for me, I think it can be very, very valuable and a great tool. And a great tool to reach people and show support and that type of thing. But I think ultimately it gets misused quite a bit, probably even more so than it gets used in the right way. And I think that's what turns a lot of people off with it.
And you say the right way, but everyone uses it as they want to use it, without a doubt.
Right. But the way that I use it is the only way to use it, and it's the correct way. So.
And I just got my 80-year-old Vietnam veteran father to start an account so we can stay in touch, which is, I worry that he's been isolated lately. My mother passed away about a year ago, and so he really is alone. And there's a Vietnam veteran all by himself and living far away from us. But he finally got on social media, got him a Facebook account. Now we're sharing pictures. My kids are sharing pictures with him.
Nice.
And that's stuff we couldn't do in the past. So there's pros and cons, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Hey, Jon, can you tell, excuse me for a second, Jeremy, can you tell, or are you keeping any stats on when you post a Buddy 22, for example, or you post a Missouri Veteran Suicide Prevention Team post, or one of the governor's challenges, any way you're tracking how many hits or how many shares you're getting? Because I know when I see one, I share it all over the place. But it seems that you and your team have done more of that lately. And I notice it, and I just share the daylights out of it. So are we getting any traction there?
There are times.
That's the institutional we, by the way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I know you're not French. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I do know we do have analytics that are built into the social media platforms, without a doubt. And sometimes they hit, and sometimes they're shared, and people love them. Other times not, and there are times where I have to monitor a little bit closer because people, my TikTok account is this, and a reply when we're talking about preventing suicide.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, so yeah, a lot of that does happen, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they flop, sometimes things I think are going to do great information about, X, Y, or Z with depression or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Depression screening tools. And sometimes they just don't pop. And every year I do have to go back through my social media and I look at the hits, I look at the shares, and I make adjustments for next year. What's working, what's not. And I thought it was odd that the videos about people sharing their stories don't really gain a lot of traction, which I thought was really interesting in this field of mental health, substance use, and suicide prevention.
Yeah.
So that's something I want to explore a little bit more this year. I'm reaching out to a couple team members saying, hey, can we share some of our stories about trainers, being trainers in suicide prevention, and then our experiences, and what are we encountering, and what is the feedback we're getting? I want to try and create a little bit of something there and start sharing that, see if that works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. We've had the same experience on the podcast of, we've had guests on who have millions and millions of followers, and we're like, all right, this one is going to be great. We're going to, it's going to have a ton of views. Those are some of the worst episodes that we've had as far as viewership goes.
Yeah.
Not the conversation. Conversation was great, but I mean, you're getting half or less.
And it may be the topic of suicide, which is, really why we came here today. It's the suicide scares the heck out of people.
Absolutely.
It is a scary topic. We can't see it like a broken arm.
Yeah.
And even if we train somebody to identify someone that might be at risk and they ask the question of suicide, what if that person says yes?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that goes back to the being intentional and, the old walking down the hall conversation of, hey, how you doing? And just keep walking.
Right.
It means you have to be invested and you have to have an actual conversation. And that scares people of really communicating.
I can see that. And also not really understanding a lot about suicide.
Yeah.
You're
mental health in general.
And this could be something that could mean someone's life. So
yeah.
I'm supposed to engage with someone right now, and that's challenging. And there's a lot of tools out there to help educate people and inform them how to do that. And that's really part of the programs that we have here. It's the Missouri Veteran Suicide Prevention Team, which Rich is part of, is a great tool. Military-connected certified trainers and what's called QPR gatekeeper training. Question, persuade, refer is what the QPR stands for. Mm-hmm. 3 simple steps people can do to help save a life. Similar to the Heimlich maneuver and things like that in CPR, which has been saving millions of lives all over the globe. QPR can do this when it comes to suicidal crisis. So, Rich, you want to talk a little bit about QPR, my friend?
Yeah, terrific. It's I have found that over the years, I've been doing this for about 4 years or so, right? It was April 2019, John, that you put the first cohort of us together, and it's going up and down because of COVID. Was one thing we were doing them virtually for a while. Those work. We prefer to do them live because of the interaction that we can get. Mm-hmm. The methodology, as John said, is quite simple. The first step is to question. And I have found that that's the most, well, of course, everything begins with the first step, but it's also, when we do the training, we spend a lot of time on question, because the subtleties are so, I'm going to contradict myself, the subtleties are so profound, listen to me, but the techniques are so important. And the way to get the person to open up and to communicate and to recognize the value of the interaction, that gets the whole process started. So when I pitch it, and I've pitched it numerous times to numerous audiences, I spend a lot of time on question. I don't shortchange that portion of the presentation at all. In fact, interestingly enough, Jeremy, when we started this about 4 years ago, Rachel found some things that QPR was using in the language that tended to be stigmatizing. Mm-hmm. And the community had moved beyond that. And Rachel, through her counseling services, had realized that the community had moved a little bit beyond that language. For example, commit suicide. I'll just use the obvious example.
Yeah.
Commit suicide. You commit murder. You commit a sin. Why is that word commit can be stigmatizing? Why is that used? Mm-hmm. And so Rachel found about a dozen or so phrases that were getting in our way, and reached back to the QPR. And this is a methodology that's been, the Quinets have been around for forever, about 20 years or so doing this, and actually wrote back to QPR and said, hey folks, can we discuss this? And they opened up to her and actually accepted it and modified some of the presentations to reflect that language. The point that I made, well, congratulations to Rachel, who she's brilliant. We've worked together for a number of years. But it took courage to do that. Mm-hmm. And it also took some insight on QPR's part to say, we accept that. This is a field input. Mm-hmm. Okay, these are real people out there, okay, who are working in this every day.
Yeah,
who've given us this feedback. To let's calm it down a little bit and let's talk to people from here, okay, to bring them into the problem rather than alienate them from it. Right. I think that's made a big difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to adapt with the times. And if you have a program that's like, no, this is the way that it is, this is what we're doing, and then they don't adapt with things, I mean, it's not going to be successful. And I mean, that's a mark of leadership, of being able to go, okay, all right, these are changes that need to be made, and let's just make them.
And God bless them. I mean, the program is peer reviewed. It's nationally certified by the National Association of Standards and Measures, and then SAMHSA has peer reviewed it, and it's an evidence-based program. It's copyrighted, so there's a lot of protection there. Mm-hmm. Yet they were open enough to communicate with us, Rachel in specific, to modify it, to get it to the point where we're talking about. It makes it easier, not in the cheap sense of easy, but makes it more palatable, more comfortable to enter into the discussion with terms that are not dividing, the terms that tend to bring you more together. So I've gotten a little bit off the topic, but as I tend to do, but I'm spending a lot of time on question, because to me that's everything can spin from that. If you've got your audience or your cohort that you're training, and if you've got them with you on getting through the question part of QPR, then the persuade and the refer just kind of flow naturally.
Rich, let me take a step back, buddy. I'm sorry.
Please do.
We at the start of the course, we spend a lot of time also educating people on the severity of the impact suicide is having on the community.
Right.
So we give them a lot of stats, we give them some data,
right,
and then we also teach them how to recognize the warning signs and clues of suicide. We make sure to spend some time on that, and we're talking about direct and indirect verbal clues, behavioral clues, situational clues, things that so they could recognize it. And then we dive deep into the cue, the question, how to ask the question of suicide. We give them a couple different approaches, and the importance of doing it and how to do it. At the end of the day, it's going to be on the rescuer, how they feel comfortable with doing it, whether it's direct, indirect, how to approach it.
Right.
So after the Q comes P.
Yeah, the P, and then the whole thing there is: are you willing to accept the responsibility? What can I do? What can we do together? And what are you willing to do to address this, to get you out of this crisis? Are you willing to, number one, do you recognize it? Number one, do you accept it? Do you own it? And then what are you willing to do to get some help? Okay. May I go with you if you'd like me to? Can we walk that path together? I'm willing to do that. I can't do it for you, but I'll be happy to do it with you. And then, well, I'm a little uncomfortable with it. Well, okay. Can I get a promise or a commitment from you, a handshake, if you will, so that you'll do it yourself, and I'll check back with you? Okay. You need a week, you need 10 days, overnight, whatever it is, and I'll check back with you and reinforce that with you. And that's when you get into the refer piece. Of the three pieces, I always find that the most difficult. And the reason I find that the most difficult is some folks want, and John, you can address this if you want, some folks want answers right there. Mm-hmm. In other words, give me 7 places I can go. Mm-hmm. Okay? Give me the best one. Okay? Is this organization better than that one? And that's where we have to be very careful not to endorse or non-endorse or criticize or compliment any one agency more than another. We have resource lists, we have referral lists, we have websites, and all of that stuff that we can. Some of it's up on the Missouri Veteran Suicide Prevention website. Some of it's up on the governor's website. I mean, but rather than Rich, you tell me the one place I can go to get it. Right. We always have to be very careful doing that.
Well, that goes back to what you said earlier, John, about choices. Right. And this one place may work for you, but this other person may go there and have a completely different experience.
That's correct.
So, yeah, I totally get that.
And this is changing some now because now we have the 988 crisis line, which is really a game changer for us in our state. So I would feel more comfortable these days giving out the 988. Right. And then also a VA resource if they would like one as well. Okay. I know the 988 Veterans Press 1 will still get you to the crisis line in New York, and it can send you down. But there's some discussion about that, too, at the end of the day. Is they can't reach the mobile crisis teams that we're going to have available in our state as easily as we can do. But we can chat about that. That's a good discussion to have as well. But he did talk about the question. He did talk about Persuade. One thing I would say about Persuade, too, is this is where we teach people how to get someone to agree to get help. Mm-hmm. This is where it's a big challenge for people because this is where you have to listen. And it is challenging for people to listen these days. I think more people listen to reply than listen to learn. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. What was that you said?
So this is a tough part, and we make sure to stress that during the training too. You know, this is where you listen. You listen because I tell you what, when someone's experiencing suicidal crisis, and someone stops and looks at them and says, "Hey, are you thinking about suicide?" It really cuts through them. It cuts through that darkness. They feel alone, and all of a sudden it's like, "Hey, someone sees me in pain. Someone sees me hurting. Someone sees me not doing well." And it can do a couple of things. They might need some time to think before they start talking, or that the floodgates might open. I've done this a couple of times with people. Typically the floodgates open, and they start sharing with me all the problems that they think suicide will solve. And that happens. But this is where you listen in the P. And you can ask some questions to confirm, you know, what do you mean your wife's not there? What do you mean, you know? You can ask some clarifying questions like that, but really this is where you listen. And at the end of the day in P, we teach people how to get them to say, yes, I want some help. Yes, I don't want to die. And that's a beautiful part about this training.
Yeah. And John just, again, hit on something, and there's a common myth out there, and up at the front end of the things that we do, we talk about myths and truths. And there's all kinds of myths and truths, but perhaps the overwhelming myth is that if you talk to someone about suicide, that you're going to drive them to it.
Right, and that's not a myth. That's 100% factual.
Yes, absolutely. No, yeah. And
sarcasm, people, sarcasm.
And that's an absolute myth because remember, especially this program as well as some others, There are a number of suicide prevention programs and methodologies out there, but we know that this one's evidence-based, so that QPR is evidence-based. The exact opposite is true. And it happens up front by the mere fact that you're asking that question, and then it can happen later in the persuade phase of the training or of the interaction, that now you've got the person past that initial, crisis. Now you're down and talking about how are we going to get some help? Okay, are you committed to getting some help? And then the person will open up again and say, "You really know what I'm talking about, don't you? You're with me here. You've listened to me." Well, yeah, we have. Yeah, we have. And so, what can we do to get you out of this crisis, and then keep you out of the crisis? It's not going to cause somebody to go out and grab the gun or grab the knife. I'm sorry, go out and grab the gun or grab the knife and do themselves in. It's proven to do the exact opposite.
Well, that's, I think, one of the big misunderstandings, misconceptions about suicide and suicide ideology and all of that stuff. And this is my own personal experience and all of that. It's when you reach a place where you feel 100% alone. Nobody understands, nobody gets it, and you're 100% by yourself. If you have somebody asking you questions and talking to you, it, like you said, it cuts through.
It cuts through it.
And, okay, well, I'm not alone. And that's the big thing that we've struggled with, with PTSD and all these other things in the fire service. That's one of the things that your brain will tell you is you're the only one who's ever felt this way. Nobody else feels this way. You're just weak, blah, blah, and you go down that little path.
Right, Jeremy.
And that's what we're trying to avoid and trying to, shed some light on is you're not alone. I mean, this is more common than it's not of, people feel sad. They feel whatever. It's normal.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're saying that, Jeremy. I don't hear that too often. So I do love it. You know what? The beauty of that training is that it teaches people to do this, to have that engagement, to recognize it, engage with that person, and offer them hope. And that's why we're passionate about the Missouri Veteran Suicide Prevention Team and get more and more people trained. The more people that are trained in this, the greater chances are we can save lives. Right. And it doesn't just pertain to military people. My trainers are military connected, sure, because, our institutions are filled with grumpy old veterans, and it's hard to get in there. That's right. I am too. And that's why that's why I thought about this program is like, let's have military connected people in there so we can go into these organizations. We can go into my Veterans of Foreign Wars post, American Legion post, EAVs, or other people that support the military community, and let's provide this training. I'm a veteran here. I want to help prevent suicide and save lives. Yeah. Let's work on it. Yeah. And that's what really sparked this idea of having Missouri Veteran Suicide Prevention Team.
John, that's a good point. It started out, and maybe this is my own perception of it, but it started out back, 4 years ago, as veterans aimed at veterans. But as I began training and getting out in the communities, veterans live everywhere, and veterans are a part of every community, be it faith-based, organizational, even corporate, you name it. The amount of folks that come in contact with veterans. And so if you're going to evangelize this and spread the training around, we shouldn't just be restricting it to veterans. I'm asked that question a lot. Hey, Rich, I can't get 25 veterans there. That's not what I'm asking you to do. Okay? Members of the community who come in contact with veterans who can recognize when a veteran or someone connected with that veteran is entering a crisis and are willing to step up and help and offer hope, as John said. So my portfolio, especially over the past year, once we came out of COVID a little bit, I've been working with libraries, with the Mid-Continent Public Library System, even with our the Archdiocese or the Diocese of Kansas City St. Joseph and Catholic Charities Kansas City St. Joseph has just started a program of what they call mental health ministry within the parish, within the parishes. And one of the programs that's one of their coordinators came up with, they said, what's this QPR thing? Okay, in terms of suicide prevention. And so our deacon at my church said, hey, Rich, who's also trained, by the way, Chuck, hey, Rich, we can help them figure this out. And so we're working on that. Not that the QPR is the centerpiece of that whole ministry, but it's a component of it. It can be a component of it. So the point I'm making here is that it spreads well beyond.
It's ripples on a pond.
It's ripples. Thank you, Jeremy. And it spreads out. And once it does, and people latch onto it, they say, well, this is a good thing. We can save lives. And it doesn't cost a dime. He doesn't have any money, neither do we. Although I call myself Sabala North, John, what do you want me to do today? And I always do it. Hey, Rich, we got some training to do over in Gower someplace or over in Odessa somewhere. Tony can't get there. Can you do? Yeah, no problem. And so you jump in a car, go to Odessa, grab yourself a couple of hamburgers. When it's all over, and you've trained 20 or 30 people in a what's that? Caregivers on the home front is one of them.
You bet.
And, we've done all of those groups who you don't normally traditionally think of as your three-letter veterans organizations. And you spread that word out, and there's been, in fact, there was a repeat. He did a repeat one with that group about a week or so ago. I'm sorry, I keep looking at the.
You do, buddy, and I love you for it. You're doing great things.
What have I done now?
No, you just keep looking away from the mic.
Well, that's John, because you're John. You know why, John?
It's okay.
It's because you are El Jefe when it comes to this group, and your approval is so important.
No, you're doing good.
I mean,
you're doing good.
Your endorsement is so important to me.
So
let me roll it back a second though, because we did talk about the QPR itself, which was important. I want to make sure people understood a little bit about what the training is. And again, it's not military specific, but there are some military specific things we've added to our module. But it's you could take it to the baseball field and use it with youth. You can whatever situation you're in. So we encourage people to look it up and train. But when we do once we finish the referral piece, how to refer somebody, how to take the lead and get them to assistance, we also do a little role playing. And the role playing, there's a script there, and we say, you're the person that's in crisis, you're the rescuer. Sometimes we pair them up. Sometimes it's given the situation, we might have to just do a group up front to do it for the team, but I try and pair people up. And then the trainers walk around as they're giving them 5 or 10 minutes to role play this. And the script has certain scenario, and it has certain things that they have to say, the buzzwords, the big clues that stand out. Yeah. And I would tell you, I think it really gives people the confidence coming out of that training, having that role-playing example. And we talk about it a little bit afterwards, too. And there are times where I've had people get up and leave and have to go out in the hallway because their connection to suicide is still pretty close and still pretty raw. Yeah. And then there are times where you hear a lot of laughing and giggling and stuff like that. So I'll stop when we're all done and say, hey, okay, how was that? Oh, that was great, easy. A lot of nervous laughter going on. How long did it take you to ask the question about suicide? And some actually didn't ask in this training environment. Because even though it's a safe, secure place to do this in, it is a scary thing to ask. Yeah. And so I think the role-playing piece that we offer at the end of this is really beneficial to the team, and helps reinforce everybody that's getting this training, gives them the confidence to go out and help save a life, which is really what we want. Yeah.
So as far as the veterans that you have doing this stuff and the demographic, or do you even have the number of the demographic that seems to have bought in the most, that has the best buy-in? Is it the older Vietnam guys, or is it the Desert Storm guys, or is it the GWAT guys.
Okay, so you have found the chink in my armor with all the programs I'm doing. I'm so terrible at grabbing information like that. So what I do grab is just a head count
Okay.
and the organization that's hosting it.
Okay.
And I would tell you the vast majority of the organizations hosting it tend to be the American Legions or Veterans of Foreign Wars, typically followed next to faith-based organizations. Those are probably the top three that are really grabbing this. And every time we pitch this, and every time I go to a veteran organization, I say, hey, too many veterans are dying by suicide. If you don't know someone that died by suicide that's a veteran, you probably have heard of a youth dying in your neighborhood, in your community, in your church somewhere that has attempted suicide or died by suicide. And so it's important you train them, everybody. Why don't you host it? And by the way, even though you're a veteran organization, open the doors and make it part of your community service. Mm-hmm. All these veteran organizations are tasked with supporting their community, not just the veterans and their families.
Yeah.
So make this community service. And I'm so fortunate, my post, VFW 1003 out of Jeff City, they are my guinea pigs. They have embraced the work that I do. They've asked me so many times, and every time I start a program, I launch it with them. They were one of the first places I trained in QPR. We started scheduling training multiple times a year, and now we're doing these lunch and learns to where they have enough funds to buy lunches for people that sign up to go to this course, and they open the doors, and we got general public coming in to learn how to prevent suicide. So it can grow to this. I love it. I love it. And it can grow to this, and it's something we promote. So, again, it's not just for military. The trainers are military connected. They're either service members like National Guard. They are veterans, military connected family members. And we've even had your rock star of a wife that was a trainer for a while. And she, because she had the great background of clinical and she works in an organization that supports military connected people, that's why we thought she'd be a great fit. And she was one of our best trainers. If she ever decides to come back, I will be more than happy, but I'll contain it so she doesn't get too excited about it.
Yeah.
I know she's a busy person, but a great trainer.
Yeah, she is. She's pretty good at what she does, just to put it mildly. So
there's an interesting story, and I may have told you this one before, is and it gets back to a topic we were talking about earlier. When I got interested in this, and even before the suicide prevention team was founded, this has got to be 6-7 years ago, if not longer. I remember we were in the old church over at St. James, and I asked the pastor, I said, hey, Father, after each Mass, would it be okay if I gave like a 3-minute pitch on veteran suicide and suicide prevention and what we can do? This is before I knew about QPR. I mean, I was working out of a book of my own, having had an interest, if not an experience, with suicide myself, having lost a son some years ago to suicide. And I said, this is important. I said, we have veterans in this parish. I said, we can kind of get ahead of this because there's a wave coming. A little stat, right, John? Or is Missouri still number one in terms of veteran suicide?
No, we're actually down. We're actually down a lot. We're probably, last time I looked, we're about 16th in the nation.
That's 16th in the nation
16th
overall.
In the nation. Yeah, so that's the number I'm kind of sticking with for now. But
Okay,
it is
but
going down. It's been on a little bit of decline lately, which is good. It's a good thing. There's still a lot more work to do.
A lot more work to do. But getting back to my story, so after each Mass that Sunday, I gave a quick pitch. And in the back of church, I had a little poster set up. I had a little video going. Okay, pamphlets ready. And I'm telling you, folks I'd known in that parish for years just walked out and just could not look me in the eye. Could not. It's like I had leprosy, God forbid, or something. I mean, wait a minute, folks. I'm here giving out. No, I mean, I'm telling you, people who I'd sung in the choir with. I mean, it was amazing.
So I'm going to give you a little insight into human nature.
And then, oh yeah, you don't have. But then I think it was the 11 o'clock mass Sunday morning. All of a sudden, this blonde-haired girl runs up to me and starts talking at 150 miles an hour. I'm Rachel Willoughby, and I want you to know about Horses and Heroes, and I want you to know about this and that's how I met Rachel. Was that Sunday morning, and I still can't remember what she said because she said it so fast. I said, Rachel, I'm from New York. I talk fast. I don't listen fast anymore. So slow down. And that's how the friendship blossomed. But you're so right about it. It was scary. I mean, I had cold feet. What am I doing wrong here?
It's one of those things, man. And you want to bring up church and all that stuff and leadership. Remember, Jesus was scorned in his hometown.
Yeah.
It's trying to be the prophet around the people that you know. That's the hardest thing to do. Like, I can sit here and I can talk on this podcast and people that I know will be like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And there's not a whole lot of buy-in. But I talk to people from Canada or from across the country and it's like, you're doing awesome stuff. And it's like, yes. And it's like,
a lot of the interactions, at least I receive during these trainings, comes before and after the course.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of start spotting a few that want to chat with you afterwards during the training and stuff like that. But there's some great interactions, and honestly, they either sharing stories of their connection with suicide, or they're sharing their concerns about someone. And that's the beauty again of this training.
Hey John, do you use along with the training module comes a pre and post course little questionnaire? Have you ever had the time to do that?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's not required that we do that, but the QPR Institute does enjoy getting some feedback.
And it's a questionnaire. It's actually the same questions. You flip the piece of paper over. What do you know about suicide? You do this before the course, and then you say, okay, folks, what do you think you've learned? Okay, and they kind of grade out their knowledge pre and post. I've used it sometimes sometimes you just simply run out of time to do it, or you decide to spend more time interacting and conversing with various folks than you do, sticking to the piece of paper. But it has proven to be useful at times for more than just statistical purposes, just to kind of gauge the group's, knowledge.
Yeah.
I've found that the ideal size, not that it really matters, but the ideal size is about 15. You start getting up 20, 25, it gets a little bit unwieldy. But
that goes back to span of control.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, you're right. But I have pitched to that many when it's necessary, and the venue can support it.
And I've done larger myself, but I've had other trainers with me. QPR Institute really promotes for efficacy is to have no more than 30 or 35, and if you do, you have to have other trainers there with you.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, people it can bring up some pretty raw emotions during this training.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we tell them up front, feel free to step outside and get some fresh air.
Yeah.
And sometimes they need a little bit of support too. So it's the smaller groups, the better. I've actually trained, and this is something I tell people that they're worried about not having enough people to come to the class if they're going to schedule this. And there was one time where I had two people there sitting there, and one of them came back to me 2 weeks later and said, I've intervened with 2 people.
Yep.
That I thought were at risk of suicide. So, yes, I'd love to see a full class, but if you can touch one, and they save a life, then it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, we've said that on this podcast multiple times.
Yeah.
If we help just one person, then we did our job. Because obviously you want to help more. You want to help everybody.
You bet.
But if you can help that one, then maybe they can help one. Then maybe that person can help 2. Then that's, like I said, ripples in the pond.
Exactly. And we keep talking about how the person trained can identify and rescue someone, but also the research has shown that it makes them less reluctant to engage. They're more likely to engage with someone if they see some issue, and more likely to start asking questions because they're knowledgeable about it. And it also lets them talk about it. had the confidence to talk about it. When I did this one at the DAV, Chapter 17, the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 17 in Jeff City, it was a full house. And there was varied ages, great time, great questions during it. A week later, I came back to a breakfast event they have. It's a social just to help people engage and interact. And as I walk in this room of probably 40 people were there, a couple of them said, "Hey, John, hey, I loved your training, your suicide prevention training." They're talking loud and openly about this in this, veteran forum. And they started talking, and this part of the training was great, and this part of the training was great. And other people started listening. And I don't recall times, at least a few years back, where you wouldn't get a veteran, to talk publicly about suicide prevention like this. It was just like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want it to be out in the open and not something that's just hidden.
Right.
Because that's part of the fight and part of the stigma. So
I love you said fight, because it is a big fight. It takes a lot to do. And the trainers we got are good, but we got to schedule more trainings. We get more people involved. I need more trainers. If we haven't said it yet, people could find one of our trainers here going through my website, www.dmh.mo.gov/veterans, and you'll have the link there.
Yep.
And we're looking for trainers. Golly, I would love to certify more people, but it's not easy being a trainer. I'm going to be upfront with it. It is not easy. Well, there's some things you have to have. Yeah, there's certain skills that you have to have, and I interview them. I spend some time on this, and it doesn't always work out. But you have to, first of all, you have to believe that suicide's preventable. You can't be a trainer in my team if you don't think suicide's preventable.
Yeah.
And we always shoot for zero. Yes, good chance someone will die somewhere, somehow, some way. Just like they plan on airplanes flying, there's a chance one will crash.
Yep.
But we plan for zero. So you have to believe that suicide is preventable. You have to be military connected in some form or fashion. And that's something we dive into, because I want to make sure you understand the military culture, part of that cultural awareness that you were talking about earlier. You have to be a little bit mobile. You have to be able to get around town. I had one person who wanted to volunteer, but they were bedridden. I love you. Great idea. I'm glad you're passionate about it. Yeah. But you may have to go somewhere to do this training, unfortunately.
Just not feasible.
You have to travel within your community, and you have to have compassion. You have to have empathy. And you have to be well enough emotionally, mentally, to be a trainer. You're going to have people share their stories. Very heart-wrenching personal stories of suicide. And sometimes they're descriptive and detailed, and I kind of do some ninja stuff to make them, not share all the details. Yeah. But it's raw and it's personal, and you just have to be able to listen and engage them and make sure they're well before they leave your site. So it's a lot, but if people are interested, they can reach me. You're going to have the link there. My email's on there as well. Okay. Reach out to me. I'd love to expand the amount of trainers we have. Would love to do it.
Cool. Well, I want to rewind a second before I let you go and get a little background about you. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but how did you end up in the job that you're in now? Because I know, you talked about you were a first sergeant in the infantry. Yeah.
I've been asking that for, about 6 or 7 years?
It's a road not too often traveled, I would imagine. So, look, I was... if I can go back just a couple of minutes, if you don't mind.
Sure.
As a little kid, I think I was a pretty good kid overall, but I was dabbling in things that you do on the streets of Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah. Experimenting with stuff and doing things that, probably shouldn't have done. I ended up in inpatient rehab. I went through the ER one night of overdosing. Woke up in inpatient rehab as a teenager. And that started my journey with behavioral health issues. I didn't realize I was having issues, but I did. Ended up dropping out of school for a while, did my own thing, and finished high school. And I was kind of bored. I was a young heavy metal kid, hair down to here, looked like Eddie Van Halen. Oh, yeah. I still play guitar, just not as good as him.
Who knew?
Yeah. And then I was going to join the National Guard so I can get a couple of dollars in my pocket. And when I went to sign up for the Guard, they said, we're going to cut your hair. And I said, well, if you're going to cut it, I might as well go full time. So I did, and that's literally what got me into going full-time active military service, because I didn't want to be in the neighborhood without my due. So it was important to me.
Totally reasonable, logical explanation and thought process.
Man, that's a visual. That's a visual I don't think I can handle.
I'll share a picture.
No, please.
We won't put it in the description.
No, please. Oh my God.
It'll be right.
That's right.
Here now.
So then, years of being Army infantry, I was going to do 4 at first and get the GI Bill and, go back and earn money. But we ended up doing Kuwait. And I just loved the mission. I loved being out there on the line with my fellow infantrymen, doing the deed. We ended up doing a lot of refugee work too. And just to see the faces on the people that we were moving around, sometimes frustrating, but overall knowing that, these people have nothing and we're moving them to somewhere to be safe again, it really filled my heart. And it was because of that I decided to stay in. And multiple deployments later, had some experiences at times. You lose some troops at times, various in garrison, while not in garrison, on deployment, different things. You come in contact with it. And suicides haven't been in my unit per se, my specific company, but there were sister companies, so they had soldiers that had died by suicide. And it didn't really connect the dots to me because I was just an infantry hardhead. Grunt, playing with crayons still, trying to taste which flavor I like the most. And then I ended up going on, we did the ground assault in Iraq, high intensity conflict, lots of things happened, a lot of experiences there. And I don't think I processed it that well. A lot of the unit came back, were under medication, psychotropics and stuff like that. I was on some antidepressants for a while just because I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, everything would start running 100 miles an hour. So it took a while to fix. And, it took a while to fix. And a little bit of counseling, too, a little talk therapy. So that took a bit. But I shook it off, and I'm ready to go. I got injured before our next deployment to Iraq. It was a spine injury. Wasn't quite healed from surgery, and the unit was deploying. And they were going to leave me back on what's called rear detachment. And that's where you take care of the families, send the unit stuff if they need it, send the newbies out to them. Yeah. And I was an infantry first sergeant. It's like, there's no way I'm staying back here. And I expressed that in words that we won't use today. So I deployed. I deployed when I was still recovering from spine surgery and chewing on pain medication.
So that's a recipe for healthy
so there
deployment.
There I was, and I spent the vast majority of deployment chewing on pain medication, thinking that I just wasn't healing because I'm wearing, full kit at times and, out there. And then I lost some troops. That was the first time I lost troops, and I wasn't with them. They were troops that were assigned to other units doing stuff like medics and stuff like that, and they were
but they were yours.
They were mine.
Yeah.
When we go back home, I'm supposed to bring them with me.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty tough thing for me to accept. And in my brain, after talking with some people smarter than me, I always associated past deployments with me being there, no one getting hurt, so we come home. And on this last deployment, I was broken. I was chewing on meds, and I was called a fobbit is the term. It's like a hobbit, but you stay on the FOB, the forward operating base. And then my troops died, and I wasn't there. And so I honestly, in my mind, the brain does what it does.
Yeah, and it's your fault automatically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I went 5 days while in Iraq to get some inpatient treatment with the combat stress team. We talked some stuff. Come to find out, helicopters were triggering me for a while because when we lost somebody, just to save lives, we would fly them out in a helicopter. And so I just, in my brain, was thinking subconsciously, oh, there's another helicopter. That means someone else passed away.
Yeah.
And it was a lot to process. So that took a while to get over, and took some treatment, took some drugs again to get over it. Got rid of the pain medications, thank goodness. So with all that experience, I started learning more and more about behavioral health and mental health. That didn't get me into DMH, but it gave me some experience and a little bit of knowledge about this stuff. And I, too, was afraid to talk about it and share it. And I should have been sharing this with my troops, and I didn't know that at the time. Ended up leaving the service. I was assigned to Missouri here, teaching at ROTC at Lincoln University, teaching cadets to be future officers. And I retired there, went to school there, got my degree, my business degree. And as I was getting my business degree, I really wanted to focus on small businesses. I wanted to be a one-stop shop. Everyone wants to be a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
But I wanted to help small businesses. I wanted to build a business plan, a marketing plan, create a website, do all that stuff. Just come to me. I want to help you because I know small businesses are the cornerstone of our economy. And as I was doing some work in the computer information systems, doing web design and stuff like that, Department of Mental Health had a summer internship for coding. And I said, man, let me do that. Let me get some coding in during the summer so I can get smarter. I went there, and yes, I was much older than the rest of the people applying, which I was okay with. I knew that was going to happen. But as they were interviewing me, they said, hey, look, your leadership background, you got some degrees going on. I want you to be a project manager here at Department of Health in our IT section. And I said, well, that sounds cool, but I really want to do, businesses and stuff. But that sounds pretty cool. Let me do it. Come to find out I was too high, that the job position was too high in the merit system to let me in at the time. So they could not offer me that job after I thought I had a job.
Yeah.
But the director at the time of the Department of Health itself, this is all through the IT section I was doing this, they were talking about me to the director of Department of Health. And his name was Keith Schaefer. He's probably one of the smartest men I'll ever meet in my life. In the world of behavioral health, he's known nationally. He was a great leader. He asked to meet, and we had lunch. And he said, hey, I heard you couldn't get that job, but unfortunately, I don't think we're doing much for veterans in the state of Missouri at the Department of Health. And I want some help with this. And I said, hey, that sounds great. I understand some resources. I've had some stuff. I wasn't sharing that with him at the time, but in my brain, I was thinking, yeah, I know about behavioral health and I know about suicide, and let's do some of this. I get it. I love it. But then I was like, oh man, wait a second. Hey,
now you're going to have to talk about it.
We got a problem because Keith, I'd love to do it, but I have some background in mental health issues and substance use, and is that going to be a problem? And he says, that's exactly what we want. We want someone that has some experience, that can talk about it, that understands the issues, and can engage, and work on these problems and help us develop programs. So I was so fortunate in that he took that weight off my shoulder and let me be able to talk about it. And because of that experience, I ended up becoming a certified peer specialist. So I can use my recovery story to help other people stay engaged in recovery as well. Now, I more do that kind of skill set when I'm engaging in outreach and stuff like that. I don't work in a community mental health center and do that stuff with others. But it was a long story, but it's not a typical journey of getting into this job. And because of his insight, Keith Schaefer, we actually made this a permanent position at Department of Health. I created this position.
Nice.
Yeah, it is very cool.
I think it's a needed position, and you probably need about 15 more people underneath you.
But you just opened up something else I don't want John to forget, and that is you recently put a piece up on social media about the amount of programs within the governor's campaign. I don't want to leave here this afternoon without touching on.
Oh yeah. So have you heard about the Missouri Governor's Challenge?
I have not.
All right, how are you doing on time, my friend?
Let me see.
Yeah, I know you got another thing coming up.
Yeah, I got time.
Okay.
We got time.
So I would tell you, and I'm terrible with dates, so I brought a little cheat sheet. I'm terrible with numbers, and my wife will remind me several times when Valentine's Day is because I'm terrible with that.
Oh my golly!
Oh yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah.
So the Missouri Governor's Challenge team, there was a an initiative that was launched by both the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs and the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, and it created the Mayor and Governor Challenge teams. And what it's trying to do is it provides technical assistance while creating teams in these communities with government and local community efforts to help prevent suicide for service members, veterans, and their families. We signed up for this, Missouri did, and I'm lucky enough to be the co-lead for that. I co-lead that with the governor's office. Great state team that we have here. I think it's just because I'm sitting here, I can't remember, 19 different federal, state, and community partners. Multiple state agencies are in there, community partners as well. 3 different VA representatives are part of this as well. And we all are working on implementing policies and practices in the state of Missouri to help prevent suicide for us. And we just launched our webpage last week, which was very exciting, well received. The governor's office did a great job with the press release, and it's gained a lot of traction. On the website, we're raising awareness about the issue of suicide. We got some stats in there, some facts, not just fake news, but some real stats that we got from the Department of Veteran Affairs and other agencies as well. So we want to raise awareness about the issue. We also use that website to kind of challenge people. We give them three steps they can do to help prevent suicide. And that's really the big thing in this is we all have to help prevent suicide. It's not just on one person's shoulder. So we really encourage all Missourians to help prevent suicide. We do this through 3 separate ways. One, you have to learn about how to prevent suicide. So we talked about Missouri Veteran Suicide Prevention Team and the training they offer here. We also offer an online course that's embedded in the webpage itself, free, no cost. It's just a great way to learn about the warning signs and clues and how to engage with someone. And that course is called SAVE. It's from the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Right.
Yeah, and they did a online version of this, but all the VA medical centers offer that training in person in the communities. The second thing we asked them to do is look at our safety plan video. A safety plan, have you heard about a safety plan?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Thank you, buddy. Just want to make sure. Normally people say no.
Yeah. Well, explain it to the viewers who may not know, but, I am married to a therapist, so I know about safety plans.
Perfect. So a safety plan is a set of coping skills people can use to help keep them from increasing the risk of suicide or suicidal thoughts. Ideally, when people go to a clinical setting for suicidal thoughts or maybe survive a suicide attempt, clinician will sit down with them, help fill this out with them so they have some healthy coping skills coming out of there. And we train people on how to recognize and get someone to care, but we don't really talk a little bit about what happens when they come home. And the safety plan video talks about that. How can I support someone, like say if Rich had a safety plan and he came back from a clinical setting, how can I support him in his safety plan? Video starts off with the governor giving a great pitch about the importance of it, and then we dive into the different sections of the safety plan so people understand it, what their role is, how they can support somebody. It's a great video. And then the last thing that we ask people to do on there is stay connected with the Missouri Governor's Challenge team on our social medias. Stay informed, get information about wellness activities, prevention activities, or the issue itself. And we have Facebook and Twitter at MoGovChallenge. So we encourage people to go on there and stay connected as well. The site's got some other good resources. Hopefully people reach out there too and really give it a good look. It's very informative.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to include that link on all of the stuff that I post. So
appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's been enlightening.
I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you driving all the way up from Jeff City, especially with the wind today.
Oh, that wind. But that's what he's got the budget for. Remember, he said that.
Yeah. It's tens of dollars.
Tens of dollars.
Like my tens of viewers.
That's right.
Rich, thanks for coming.
Jeremy,
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again.
You guys have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, John just put it very well in his summary about the governor's challenge. It's anything we can do to raise awareness, having folks engage with other folks to give them hope.
Right.
It's all about giving somebody hope. Okay. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem 99 times out of 100, if not 100 times out of 100. So give somebody hope to say that there's no reason to take that final solution for a problem that really, in reality, in comparison, may be significant for a time, but not significant forever, where suicide is forever.
Yeah.
So it's all about reaching out and giving hope. And we can, you know me well enough to know that I'm calmer right now than I usually am, although I am very passionate. I'm very, 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 very passionate about this. And in fact, it was Rachel who invited me to that first training. I had kind of blown past it on a web posting or something. She said, I know you know about this. Why haven't you signed up? So it was Rachel that poked me and reminded me about it. I had met Jon a couple of years before doing some symposiums that we did for the Legal Foundation downtown. So I knew Jon. I said, "Oh, that's that Sabala guy." Ah, yeah, okay. Now it's all connecting, and so I can get rather passionate about this stuff. And again, having dealt with it, myself, I know the devastation it can cause. And so if we can save lives, we're doing more than the Lord's work, believe me. So
I would ask that everyone's get engaged in suicide prevention. It's everyone's job. Everyone's role. We all have a part to play in it. And even if you're not sure, know that anyone can call 988, which is our suicide and crisis lifeline. Yeah. And it's not just for suicide. It's for behavioral health issues, substance use issue, mental health issues. 988. Missouri Network is strong and doing great. So please spread the word.
Thanks.
All
right, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks to Jon and Rich.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Appreciate it so much. And yeah, if you know somebody that's struggling, like you said, reach out. It's everybody's responsibility. And if you are struggling, reach out. There are resources out there. So, yeah, appreciate it. Have a good time or have a good day, and we'll see you next time.